At 20,000 feet, reality warps. You're trapped in a metal shell, thousands of feet from safety. You entrust your life to machines, to engineers, and to the promise that physics won't fail. But what if something else is out there? Something physics can't explain. You hear the noise, a sound that shouldn't exist. You look at the wing, and there it is. Imagine looking out your airplane window and seeing something impossible, something that shouldn't exist. This is the true story behind Nightmare at 20,000 feet, the Twilight Zone episode that still haunts viewers 6 decades later. If you're ready to discover what really inspired this terrifying tale of a gremlin on a plane wing, keep watching ... This is the story of Bob Wilson, or perhaps the story of William Shatner. A terrified man convinced that a creature is destroying the plane. But this is not just a fictional story by Rod Serling. This is the story of how real fear, war trauma, and technical paranoia created a monster that haunts the skies to this day. The Gremlin. The seed was planted by the master of psychological horror, Richard Matheson, in his 1961 short story. But it was the adaptation of Twilight Zone that cemented the Gremlin in popular culture. Rod Serling's genius lay in taking the universal fear, the loss of control, and personifying it. Bob Wilson, played by Shatner, is a man who has just recovered from a nervous breakdown. He is the unreliable witness, and that's crucial. If he sees the monster, he's crazy. If the monster is real, everyone is in danger. The perfect dilemma. But the Gremlin myth predates Matheson and Serling by decades. It is born in the most terrifying and lonely place on Earth, the cockpit of a World War II bomber. Aft damaged planes, cramped and stressful cabins. The word gremlin originated among pilots of the British Royal Air Force around 1940. A bomber pilot's lifespan was short and brutal. Failures were common. Human error was fatal, but how do you explain the inexplicable? How do you justify an engine failing for no apparent reason or an instrument going haywire mid-mission? They couldn't blame themselves or the precariousness of war technology. So they blamed the gremlins, small, mischievous creatures that chewed wires, loosened screws, and drank fuel. The gremlin was the personification of random mechanical failure, a way of coping with trauma and helplessness. Roald Dahl, yes. The children's author was an RAF pilot and helped popularize the term with his book Gremlins. The legend was already established. When something went wrong, it was the gremlin's fault. It was a mechanism for psychological survival. Modern aviation has eliminated most catastrophic failures, but psychological stress remains. Think of what the gremlin represents, the invisible threat. And the history of aviation is full of invisible threats. There was the case of metal fatigue, the silent enemy that caused planes to break apart in midair, like the comet in the 1950s. There was hidden corrosion, the vibration that slowly unravels the structure. And there was hypoxia, the lack of oxygen at high altitudes that causes hallucinations and paranoia. Imagine an exhausted pilot subjected to extreme stress, perhaps with a faulty oxygen mask. The mind begins to create patterns where there are none. What was Bob Wilson's gremlin doing on the wing? If not representing the fatal vibration he knew was there, but that no one else could see? The gremlin has evolved. Today, it doesn't have claws, but it has code. Fear is no longer a being on the wing, but the failure of a software that controls hundreds of vital systems. The threat is digital, but the paranoia is the same. We are at the mercy of technology. The real story behind Gremlin isn't about a furry cryptid. It's the story of human impotence in the face of technical complexity. It's our collective fear that, no matter how advanced we are, there will always be a small flaw, an invisible variable, waiting to bring us down. Imagine looking out your airplane window and seeing something impossible. Something that shouldn't exist. This is the true story behind Nightmare at 20,000 feet, the Twilight Zone episode that still haunts viewers 6 decades later. If you're ready to discover what really inspired this terrifying tale of a gremlin on a plane wing, keep watching ...
Imagine you're on a plane, looking out the window, and you see something. Something impossible. Something on the wing. This isn't just a classic TV episode. It's a deep dive into the very nature of fear, and its origins are more fascinating than you could ever imagine. Today, we're pulling back the curtain on Nightmare at 20,000 feet, the legendary Twilight Zone story that has terrified audiences for generations. We'll explore the real psychological terror that fueled William Shatner's iconic, frantic performance, and how the story's creator, Richard Matheson, channeled his own crippling fear of flying into this masterpiece of suspense. You might be shocked to learn that the idea of a gremlin messing with an aircraft wasn't just a fantasy. We'll uncover the startling connection to real-life World War II pilots who reported seeing these mischievous creatures, blaming them for mechanical failures mid-flight. Were these just hallucinations born from the stress of combat, or something more? This real-world folklore added a terrifying layer of plausibility to Matheson's story. For many viewers, the gremlin wasn't just a monster. It was a manifestation of a genuine historical fear that pilots had faced for years. It's this blend of the fantastical with the strangely familiar that makes the story so chillingly effective. The original 1963 episode, starring a young William Shatner as the tormented passenger Robert Wilson, became an instant classic. Shatner's portrayal of a man teetering on the edge of a nervous breakdown is absolutely riveting. Just recovered from a mental collapse, he's the only one who sees the creature on the wing dismantling the engine piece by piece. His desperate attempts to convince his wife and the flight crew are met with condescending smiles and placating words. Is he relapsing, or is he the only sane person on a flight doomed to crash? This internal conflict is the heart of the story's psychological horror. It's not just about the monster outside. It's about the terror of not being believed, of your own mind turning against you. The episode's direction is a masterclass in building tension. The tight, claustrophobic shots inside the airplane cabin make you feel trapped right alongside Robert. Every time he pulls back the curtain, we hold our breath, half hoping and half dreading that the gremlin will be there. The creature itself, a furry, almost comical-looking being, is somehow even more unsettling because of its bizarre appearance. It's a surreal nightmare brought to life. Rod Serling's closing narration hammers the point home, leaving us with the haunting question of whether Wilson's fate is a recovery room or a straitjacket. The ambiguity is what makes it stick with you long after the credits roll. This time, John Lithgow stepped into the role of the anxious passenger, John Valentine. Directed by George Miller, the mastermind behind Mad Max, this segment cranked the intensity up to 11. Lithgow's performance is a tour de force of pure, unadulterated panic. Where Shatner's character was internally unraveling, Lithgow's is an explosion of primal fear. The redesigned gremlin was no longer a furry curiosity. It was a sleek, demonic, reptilian creature that looked genuinely dangerous. The 1983 version excels in its visceral horror. The storm is more violent. the plane's turbulence is more jarring, and the gremlin's actions are more aggressive. It taunts Valentine, looking him right in the eye, fully aware that he's the only one who can see it. The scene where it screeches and taps on the window is a legendary jump scare. This remake terrified a whole new generation, proving the story's timeless power. It wasn't just a rehash. It was a reimagining that understood what made the original so scary and amplified it for a modern audience. Lithgow's character isn't recovering from a breakdown. He's just an ordinary man gripped by an extraordinary fear of flying, making him even more relatable to the audience. So, what are the hidden meanings that make this story resonate so deeply even today? Nightmare at 20,000 feet is more than just a creature feature. It's a profound exploration of sanity, belief, and the terrifying isolation of being the sole witness to a horrifying truth. It taps into our primal fears. The fear of flying, the fear of the unknown, and perhaps most terrifyingly, the fear of not being trusted by those closest to us. The airplane itself is a perfect metaphor, fragile metal tube suspended in the void where control is an illusion. We place our faith in the pilots and the machine, but what happens when that faith is shattered? The story asks a powerful question. What would you do if you saw something that defied all logic, something that threatened the lives of everyone around you, but no one would believe you? How far would you go? Would you risk being labeled insane to save them? Robert Wilson and John Valentine both make a choice to take matters into their own hands. They steal a gun, they break the window, they confront the monster. In the end, they are vindicated, as the damage to the wing is undeniable. But they pay a heavy price for their heroism, carted away in straitjackets. They were right, but they lost their credibility and, in the eyes of society, their sanity. This enduring theme has been parodied and paid homage to countless times. From The Simpsons to Saturday Night Live, cementing its place in pop culture history. But no matter how many times it's referenced, the original terror remains. It's a testament to Richard Matheson's brilliant writing and the powerful performances of Shatner and Lithgow. The story of the man who saw something on the wing is a modern myth, a cautionary tale about the thin line between perception and reality. It reminds us that sometimes the greatest nightmare isn't the monster outside the window, but the struggle for sanity within. Thank you so much for joining me on this deep dive into a Twilight Zone classic. What's your favorite version of the story? Let me know in the comments below. And if you enjoy exploring the history behind your favorite horror stories, make sure to like this video and subscribe for more content. Until next time, fly safe and maybe don't look out the window.